If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, former writer, full-time observer, joined by former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, Jack Hirsch. Jack, I know you like to do this, but as normal, before the show, we were talking about other sports, and it seems sometimes the conversation is more compelling regarding other sports, because for boxing to be compelling these days, in my opinion, you got to talk about the past. How are you?
Well, we want to hit the ground running because there's a lot of good weekend action.
This weekend, that doesn't apply. There's some fights going on.
I can't believe it, Frank. Is this a first for us that we're actually gonna start the show talking about women's boxing? Because the biggest fight, as far as I'm concerned, this weekend is the trilogy, the third match. Do they have to be one apiece for it to be a trilogy, or could it just be a third fight? Do I have to look that up, or can you inform me? Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano. Katie Taylor is up 2-0. You know, controversial decisions in both fights, especially the second one. But for the record, she's up 2-0 over Amanda Serrano. Is it considered a trilogy? It's not a rubber match, that we know.
Jack, I think because both fights were so close, you could say that Amanda Serrano's up 2-0 too. I didn't see the second fight. I saw the first fight, and I thought Serrano edged it out. I didn't see the second fight.
Right. The consensus is that Serrano did edge the second fight out, but this much we know. They left it all in the ring, you know, Taylor and Serrano. They gave it all they had. And it shows, Frank, the advantage to 2-minute rounds for the women. They fight 2 10-minute rounds. So technically speaking, they fight a maximum of 20 minutes because their title matches are 10 rounds, as opposed to the men who fight 12 3-minute rounds, 36 minutes. So the men are really fighting an extra 16 minutes when you think
Jack,
of it that way.
You are more in tune with the female boxing than I am. I will just say this. If they need to go to 3-minute rounds, and they need to go 12 rounds for a title fight to make it a little bit more compelling. These feather fights, these feather dusters, they're exciting, but people want to see power. They want to see stoppages. I think, look, it's women against women. There's no men fighting the women. I think the women should be held to the same rules and expectations of the men. 12-round fights for the title, 3-minute rounds. If they can't do that, then don't fight.
Well, no, I see the point, but it's not going to be as exciting, the women's fight, with the longer duration. Serrano herself pushed for the 3-minute rounds for women because she thinks it's equality, but she would not have been able to keep up the same pace along with Katie Taylor had they had a longer fight. You know,
but it benefits her, Jack. The 3 rounds benefits her style. The 3-minute rounds benefits her style because she's more the puncher, and it takes some time to wear her down and get to her. Where for 2-minute rounds, that benefits Katie Taylor, who's quicker and a little busier. She can keep the pace up for 2-minute rounds. Maybe a 3-minute round consecutively, she might not.
Frank, a prediction for the fight at Madison Square Garden. Who you're picking, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano?
All right, well, here's my well-thought-out deep pick. I'm going to go with Serrano because I just think she's got to get one of them, and they're going to give her the decision. We know it's going to go the distance. They're both getting up there in age. I think Serrano's, 2 years younger? I'm going to go with Serrano to win a decision this time.
36 round there, you know, or 35, 36, and Taylor's 39. And,
right.
You know, Katie Taylor has taken too much punishment. Why is she continuing? This is why fighters wind up in a less than desirable position later in life, because they have these extra fights that really aren't necessary. As long as they can perform in the ring and be a winning fighter, they continue. But it seems like no one looks out for them. But more importantly, they don't look out for themselves. They think they're
Ricky Hatton's coming back at 46. How old was he last fought?
And you know what? How Ricky Hatton, and that's a good segue into Hatton. And then I want to go to the other show at New York that weekend. But Ricky Hatton at age 46 said he feels he's going to be afforded protection against taking unnecessary punishment because he's not fighting elite guys. He's saying, I know my level of competition. Now you get hit. Frank, it doesn't matter that much who hits you. If you're taking punches, they don't distinguish between an elite fighter and a mediocre fighter. They just don't. And this is what pushes fighters over the line to get dementia or whatever else.
This is one thing I want to know, Jack, and I don't know if you know the answer because I have not seen it printed or said. Does Ricky Hatton need the money, or is he coming back because he is bored, wants to be in the spotlight again, and just can't get it out of his system? That's a good point, Joe. I didn't realize his opponent's 47, so that kind of is a wash a little bit. But who wants to pay to see that?
He's going to spar in the gym. You take a few jabs, you get hit. Same thing I was telling you about Mayweather with the exhibitions. Reports are coming out. I don't know how accurate they are. That are attributed to Mayweather. He talks about his Uncle Roger having dementia and his dad, and saying he forgets things now. That maybe it's the genetics or whatever. But you're taking the extra hits. There's no need for it. This isn't baseball, okay? It's not basketball where like a Michael Jordan could come back at age 50. And what's going to happen?
He'll miss shots. That's all. He'll miss shots.
Right. And we saw what happened to Jerry Quarry in a meaningless 6-round fight against a guy, Ron Kramer. He took so many head-snapping punches. Who knows what damage that caused him?
Jack, you're right. And the fact that you brought up Mayweather, let's touch on one thing before we get to the big card. Did you see what Mayweather posted today?
Mayweather keeps trying to put himself out there. Mayweather, like he's the greatest fighter ever. But we do agree on this. You can make a great case for Mayweather having the greatest career ever. Because of the amount of money he made. He was able to retire undefeated. He managed his own career magnificently.
He got the most money for the least risk. There's no doubt about it.
But he beat a heck of a lot of good quality fighters.
They were all on the way down, basically.
Well, not all of them, but Mayweather is an all-time
most of them.
great. But he's not. But if you ask most people, like hypothetical matchups, you get to see that they're not fooled by the Mayweather talk that he's the best.
Most people that have a clue, yes. But Jack, the people that are watching, maybe they don't know. But earlier this week, Roy Jones was asked who would win between Leonard. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, Roy Jones was asked his opinion on a Mayweather-Leonard fight, and he said, Leonard's a dog, he's meaner, and he went into a litany of reasons why he would take Leonard over Mayweather. Well, what did Mayweather do? That got back to him, and he started posting him watching the TV of Roy Jones getting knocked out and laughing. I think he is so insecure, and the fact, Jack, that he has to do things like that shows you that as much money as he has and his undefeated record, inside he knows he doesn't get the respect of other people or other great fighters, and Jones may even be one of them. And it just kills him with all the money, all the manipulation, and the undefeated record, and no one refers to him as being one of the greatest of the greats, and it makes him crazy.
Yeah, but publicity-wise, as far as being a star, okay, Mayweather did market himself greatly. A case in point would be if Mayweather is on one street corner and Roy Jones is across the street on the other street corner, more people are going to flock to Mayweather. We got to admit, because he has turned himself into a personality, a star. Jones was merely a great fighter. Jones at his peak, at his prime, I mean, the vast majority of people who have nothing against Mayweather at all, or have no interest in boosting Jones, if they were asked who was a better fighter at their peak, the vast majority would say Roy Jones was. The vast majority would say Leonard was. Okay, but and
I think that eats away at Floyd, Jack.
Yeah,
it does.
I think Floyd misses the limelight. That's why I think he had the exhibitions in part, because they were risk-free. He knows they wouldn't go on his record. If there was ever a slip-up, they can't put it down as a loss. That's why he never took the exhibitions to credit as a victory, an official decision going his way. But he wanted the leader to believe, well, he's exhibiting his skills and so on. Is there ever a small possibility that Mayweather could return to the ring? The only small possibility I could see, two things would have to happen. He'd have to wind up broke, flat out broke, where he'd need the money. And then that'd have to be Manny Pacquiao in the opposite corner. And he might think, okay, I can get maybe a couple of $100 million from Turkey. I can't pronounce His Excellency's last name. I got to get it. It's a tongue twister. Who would give him a couple of $100 million for a fight like that?
All right, Jack. So
I think Mayweather would want to fight Pacquiao and say the official result can't be an official fight, but we'll fight it like it's a real fight, but the official result can't count. That's what I think he would want to put in the clause.
All right. Well, since you asked me the question before you answered it, let me just say this. Mayweather's never going to go broke, and he's never going to fight again or as an official fight. He may do an exhibition with Pacquiao. He might do an exhibition with Anthony Joshua, but he will never fight again officially. And Joe Bergman, I agree with you. Pacquiao is going to get beat up by Barrios.
Yeah, Pacquiao. I'm not impressed with Barrios. I am not impressed with Barrios. He's quite average, Frank. I mean, I'm picking Barrios to win the fight, but I'm picking it based on Pacquiao being a 46-year-old fighter. All this inactivity. He didn't look good the last time out. But is it possible Pacquiao could eke out a decision? I wouldn't be flabbergasted, Frank. I wouldn't be like, oh, am I shocked? I expect Barrios to clearly win the fight, okay? But, I could see it going the distance, Barrios winning a clear decision. Or I could see Barrios retiring him in a few rounds. But Barrios isn't a world beater, Frank. He's not.
But he did retire the guy that retired Pacquiao. Let's not forget that. I know in boxing, A plus B does not equal C. But Ugas beat the crap out of Pacquiao. And then Barrios handled Ugas. I would not be shocked if Pacquiao won, Jack, but I don't expect him to. And a lot of it is because of what you said. Because Barrios is good, but he's nothing special.
Right, exactly. Like, so we both agree Barrios should win the fight, should win it decisively with room to spare, whether it's by distance or stoppage. But if Pacquiao could eke out a decision, we would be surprised, maybe very surprised, but not like, oh, wow, we're shocked. We couldn't see this.
No, it's not stop the presses. All right, Jack, let's get on to the big card, because I know you're frothing at the mouth to get Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda, two undefeated in their prime guys fighting for the lightweight title. What do you have?
Shakur Stevenson should win this easy. But there's a little bit of a red flag that gives Zepeda a chance. Shakur Stevenson has a lot of pride. He doesn't want the image of being a safety-first fighter, and sometimes he does stay in the pocket. And Zepeda's been getting on the skin. He wants Shakur to stand up and fight and not run, and Shakur promises he's going to be trading with him. You know, he's going to be in the pocket. He's going to fight Zepeda, and that gives Zepeda a chance because he's a volume puncher. But with that said, Shakur's elite. Zepeda's not. Zepeda won 2 close decisions over Tevin Farmer.
Tevin Farmer,
was blasted out by Floyd Schoenfield in 1 round. I mean, come on. They talk about the terms, they're levels in boxing. Zepeda has the style to beat Stevenson, but Stevenson is on another level. Stevenson is arguably, only arguably, Frank, a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You can make a case that he's a lower top 10 if you want. And he's certainly a good enough talent that it's conceivable someday he might be the number 1 fighter pound-for-pound in the world. But I think Stevenson's wasted a lot of time in his career. And for all we know, his best years might be slipping away. But in this fight with Zepeda, he's going to shine. He's going to dominate. I look for Stevenson to get a late round stoppage, and if he doesn't get the stoppage, he's going to win very widely on points.
Jack, what makes the fight intriguing is you have a boxer against a puncher, and you have a guy that's a volume puncher, and supposedly they're the guys that give the boxers trouble because they make them rush everything and they make them uncomfortable. But what people fail to realize, and I think that will come into play in this fight, just because someone is not a knockout puncher, that they're not strong. And, you know, we have plenty of examples of guys that have ring strength. Mayweather, not a big puncher. He had it. Ali's not considered a big puncher. He had it. And these guys that get in the ring that go after Shakur Stevenson, that want to fight as the puncher and the attacker, when they get in there, Jack, and they hit him and they realize they don't shake him up like they thought, they don't move him like they thought they would. And it comes down to, once they can't out-muscle them, then it comes down to their skill. And I think that's what's going to happen. And as you said, Zepeda saying things to try to unravel him, that reminds me of what Jimmy Young told me when he fought Ron Lyle both times. He said Ron Lyle called him every vile name in the book and every insightful, meaningful name to hurt him that you could, to try to get him to stand there and fight. And Jimmy told me he just laughed at him because he knew that's what he was doing. And I don't think that Shakur Stevenson is going to fall into that trap.
You know, but if Shakur's a complete fighter, he could fight all styles. He could stay in front of him and fight him. Look at the first Duran-Leonard fight. People forget Leonard went toe-to-toe for the last few rounds, basically. He stayed in the pocket. He fought Duran. He didn't box him. And Leonard did a darn good job, you know, even though he lost.
But he was also desperate, Jack, and needed to land a big shot to end that fight. And that was the only way it was going to happen because he knew he was behind down the stretch.
But Customato would say this about what made Sugar Ray Robinson and Ray Leonard so great. They were, and Muhammad Ali, they were mentally and physically tough. They had, you know, they would stand in there and they'd fight you all night if they had to.
No, but they were dogs, no doubt about it.
Right, people thought of them as being pretty boys, boxers. You could rough them up, you could do this to them, that to them. But they were tough guys. Yeah, they were tough in the mold of a Jake LaMotta. I mean, people didn't realize that about him. And maybe Stevenson has that quality. We don't know.
But no one has pushed him to that yet.
You know, and I don't think Zepeda will, because I think he's so much
better
than Zepeda. But with all the talk going on, I don't see Stevenson fighting a safety-first, boring type fight and winning on points and leaving. You know, Stevenson isn't an attraction. That's why I say his best years might be slipping away. He's got to make a statement. He's got to create a buzz, you know, somewhere. And he has.
We've been saying that for a while, though, Jack.
A while. And
he's had 23 fights.
I had said this about Stevenson, and I said it about Terence Crawford, but Crawford got away with it in the sense because he got the mega fight against Errol Spence, not a mega fight against Canelo. We don't know is it going to come for Stevenson. He should have been active. Look, when he was with Top Rank, they offered him like a 5-fight deal or something, $3 million a fight, 5 fights over 2 years. And he's only fighting a couple of times a year as is. For $3 million a fight, he's not even getting that for most of the fights. Now, from what I understand, he's getting more like in the $2.1 million range or whatever. I'm not sure what his purse is for this fight. So he leaves Top Rank, and he would have had the exposure on ESPN. Just keep fighting, keep knocking guys off, keep beating them. But they don't understand. They want the big pot of gold. And listen, I anticipate he beats Shakur wins this fight with Zepeda decisively. I don't know what would be next for him. What exactly?
There's one fight, Jack. There's one fight. He has to fight Tank, and Tank has to fight him.
Tank's probably going to fight Lamont Roach, would be my guess. Unless Tank is ducking Lamont Roach and he thinks Lamont Roach's style is all wrong. Let me ask you this. Tank against Shakur, because of Tank's draw with Lamont Roach, did it tarnish the matchup just a tiny bit? I think it did tarnish it just a little bit. All of a sudden...
I think it was one of those style things, Jack. I still want to see it because Shakur is a great defensive fighter, a great boxer. I think he's stronger than people think. And Tank is one of the best offensive fighters in boxing. And when he wants to bring the heat, he can. Shakur's not too big for him. He doesn't have to worry about Shakur really hurting him or knocking him out. I think that would still be a huge attraction, and I'd love to see it. I don't know who I would pick. I've gone back and forth. Probably give Tank the edge, but let me see what Shakur looks like Saturday night. But I don't think that this fight will tell us anything about how he'll really match up with a guy like Tank. Tank is his Duran. If he's Leonard and Mayweather, Tank is his Duran.
Well, I'm a little concerned about Tank. After the Lamont Roach fight, why isn't he back in the ring? Why didn't he sign for a rematch? Why didn't he sign to fight someone else? Is Tank living a comfortable life because he's got money, he's got this?
I was just going to say, I think that's a part of it.
That's the beginning of his downfall, if that's the case. If he's living a comfortable life and he just shows up when he has to show up for a big fight, and is only training hard when he has to train hard. Certain fighters like a Bernard Hopkins and a Marvin Hagler, you knew these guys were in the gym between fights. They were
Jack, and you have to say that about Mayweather too, as much as I don't like him. Mayweather was another one of those guys that turned pro in '96 and has never been out of shape and understood the big picture and stayed active.
Yeah, that you have to give Mayweather always his due. That he respected the sport. Stevenson Tank, it's a big, big fight, but I'd like to see Tank go back in with Lamont Roach. Then if he stops him, it completely restores Tank's reputation. There's another fight out there. It's going to be in November. You're going to have, Brian Norman and Devin Haney.
Can't wait for that.
Fight, yeah. Is a good one. It's going to be a good matchup there, at welterweight there. So we're going to see.
Jack, your favorite fighter's fighting Saturday night also, Edgar Berlanga against Samaza Shazira.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I said that correctly.
Berlanga's making a lot of noise that he wants all the big names. He thinks he's a star. I'm interested in that fight. Berlanga and Shazira. I am too. Let me tell you why I'm interested. Not the matchup itself.
Because you want to see Berlanga get beat.
Because when Berlanga gets beat, I could go back to you, Frank, and say that's Canelo's red flag. Because he went the distance with Berlanga, and you, Frank, said, oh, you got to give Berlanga credit. The kid came up with a good showing. He came up with a good showing because Canelo's past his prime.
Well, Jack, wait a second, though. So what do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? He came up with a good show in the biggest fight of his career. What's he supposed to do? Mail it in and suck that night?
It didn't matter. If Canelo was anywhere close to his prime, he would have disposed of Berlanga in 5-6 rounds. It just shows you how much Canelo has slipped. And we're going to see it when Shariz, who fought a draw with Carlos Adames in his last fight, he disappointed everyone. He was so lackluster. Beats
and he was up early in that fight too.
Yeah. So listen, let Berlanga shut me up by winning Saturday. That's the way to do it. Win, look impressive, and then I take a step back. Whoa,
Jack,
maybe he proved the point, but I don't think he does it.
But Jack, you get on him because, well, he gets too much credit for giving Canelo a good show. So it's like, what's the winning side? If he does good, it's because Canelo was no good. If he does bad, it's because he's no good. So what is it?
Fighter. He did. It's first up. He shouldn't have had the Canelo fight. Okay, they tried. He had 16 first-round knockouts. It just happened to turn out that way with guys that were overmatched. Fine, good matchmaking. Then they tried to get him into a Canelo fight, but he couldn't knock anyone out for 5 fights in a row, and they're giving him the right opponents to stop, and he couldn't stop any of them. Then finally he's able to stop one of the guys they give him, one of the opponents. They put him in a situation that he could stop him. And now he gets the Canelo fight.
Jack, nobody's saying the guy's Roy Jones. Nobody's saying he's the next Roy Jones or Tony. But the fact is, when he got a chance to fight the marquee guy in the sport and definitely in that division, he did play. He did show up and he did a good job. He didn't show that he was a total fraud. So you're already writing the narrative. I can see it. Wait.
If total fraud, he's not
Jack,
that.
But you're setting the narrative up, and this is what bothers me. It's like, well, Ali fans will rip Frazier. He's a punching bag. Well, then if he's a punching bag, why do we give Ali credit for beating him? Or they'll say Sugar Ray Leonard can't punch because he never hurt Marvin Hagler. Well, if he can't punch, how come Hagler couldn't do anything?
Frank, no one's saying Leonard can't punch or Frazier's a
Jack, we're talking to different people then, because I've seen that a lot.
You're talking about your wacky friends, Frank.
No. Everybody says, Leonard, he couldn't punch. He couldn't hurt Hagler. Hagler has one of the best chins ever. But my point is this. You're already setting it up. If Crawford beats Canelo, it's because Canelo was slipping. And if Canelo wins, then, well, he should be the guy that's moving up 3 weight classes. So do you see my point? Fighters can't win today. Crawford can beat the hell out of Canelo, and everybody, or you'll say, he's slipping. He's dramatically on the slide. And if Canelo wins, he should have won. Crawford's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world at the worst. If Canelo beats him, it's still a big win.
No. Crawford is slipping as well. The fight with Israel Madrimov is his red flag. No, make no mistake about this. Even though Canelo-Crawford is a super fight, it's not a super fight in the sense that the two guys are meeting at their very best in their prime.
But that rarely happens in boxing, Jack.
But both of them are past their primes. You can't, certain fights like Bivol Beterbiev, if I could say they met in their prime, the first 2 fights. You got them both at the top of their game.
Beterbiev was 40. He's in his prime at 40?
You can't, Frank, he's
40. He was 40, level. Jack. Is he in his prime?
He wasn't 40 when they fought at first.
What was he, 39 the first time?
But the point is, he'd been at the top of his game, okay, the whole time. There weren't any red flags or anything. And you're not going to get a red flag. A guy who's fighting at a top level, you give him the biggest fight of his career, he's not going to start losing his skills if he's active for that big fight. He's going to be able to extend his career at the top level.
Jack, you're the one that always says no excuses when you say this guy was on the slide, Lyle fought Shavers too young. It's like How many times do we get guys that meet in their prime? How many times do we get a Leonard versus Hearns? It doesn't happen often.
That's correct. I remember Michael Olajide, former top middleweight contender, telling me it's very rare that two fighters ever meet at their best. The two
great fighters.
Yeah, very, very rare. And like you can even talk about the 3 Ali Frazier fights. Both of them won at their very best, the prime of their careers.
The closest was the first fight.
Closest was the first fight. Yeah, they were both in their 20s. Agreed on
27 and 29.
Yeah, but even you give an example, Leonard Hearns. They fought twice. The first fight, Hearns was probably just entering his prime, basically, when that fight took place, entering his prime, but not fully established in his prime, even though I know he knocked out Pepino Cuevas in 2 rounds. Leonard was a little more established in his prime than Hearns, even though you can argue they were, Hearns was in his prime as well. I guess he was, but he was barely in his prime, if you understand what I mean.
That was still pretty close, though, to both being in their prime. Leonard was a little bit more in his prime, but Hearns was pretty close there. So it was close enough where the result counts. Just like Ali and Frazier, the result counts. But we hardly ever see that. So the fact that my point is this: you give Berlanga a hard time, and you paint me in a corner where I have to defend him, and I don't like doing that. But the bottom line is, no one has beat Canelo since Bivol, and Mayweather are the only two that beat him, even though I think he lost a couple other fights. The point is, Canelo is cruising along. If Crawford beats him, it's a big win. And if he beats Crawford, you know what? No one has defeated Crawford yet. You can say he didn't look good against Madrigal, but you know what? No one has defeated him. So that's a big win. I get tired of this bit where it's like, well, it doesn't count, but we're going to give one guy credit, but we're going to disparage the other guy. Well, if Canelo's so shot, let's not give Crawford credit if he beats him.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Another question here, Don McGuire. Good question. How you doing, Don? Do you think we will ever have another golden era in boxing? I'm not so sure. We're not living in a golden era now compared to what it was. Only in this sense. You can see every fight you want now. And in the past, it was hard. The big fights, we'd have to go out to movie theaters, see, on closed circuit. There wasn't.
You mean you can see them in your living room?
Right. No. But now you could have, but in the past, I'm just going to give you an example. You could have a wonderful fight, Emil Griffith against Tom Boggs in Denmark, top contender Tom Boggs. You'd have to read about it, one of the magazines 3-4 weeks later after they fought. You wouldn't know. Carlos Ortiz could be fighting Sugar Ramos, 2 great lightweights, okay, for a world championship fight in Mexico City. We couldn't see that. I remember as a kid trying to get the fight on radio. I wasn't able to get it. You can see any fight you want now. You couldn't do that.
Jack, that's not the question. The question is, are we seeing the fights that we want to see? We haven't seen Tank against Stevenson. We haven't seen him against Lopez. We haven't seen Garcia fight a whole bunch of guys. Other than Bivol and Bitterbeef, Jack, what guys at the top of their classes are actually fighting?
You want to know why, Frank? You don't see, it's hard to see the elite matchups compared to
because they can make so much money fighting other guys.
No, that's got nothing to do with it. I mean, that's not the main reason. The main reason is this. All the extra weight divisions, guys can go into hiding. They could bounce around one division to the next. That's why in the past, these junior titles meant nothing. Carlos Ortiz told me when he held the junior welterweight title, it meant nothing to him. Nothing to him. He held
Jack, we had all those divisions in the 80s and 90s. We had all those divisions.
But they're so pronounced now. Okay? if you had less weight divisions, the guys would be forced into fighting one another.
Jack, how about
they
this?
Move from lightweight to junior
But Jack, why do they do that? They do that to avoid other guys where that didn't happen before. That's the difference. That's why we're not in a golden age, and that's why I don't think we're going to have it again, because today guys will lose 4 or 5 pounds or gain 4 or 5 pounds to avoid a threat to them, because they want to keep their undefeated record, because they know once they get beat, the fans will be done with them. And that's why we won't have a golden age. Where when Hearns lost to Leonard, he was still a big attraction.
And then we also don't have a golden age because of the public. You heard me, the public. They're so gullible over nonsense like, oh, unification fights. We need one champion. Case in point, Usyk is the heavyweight champion of the world. Anyone who says he's not, okay,
doesn't know what they're talking about.
It's delusional. So if he beats De Bruyne again, and one of the sanctioning bodies strips him, we tend to say, well, he's not the unified champion. And then they ask him, do you want to unify the title? That is idiotic. It is stupid.
Jack, I think some people
into it.
Jack, I think some people think when it's a unified fight, they think it's the 2 best. And if it's the 2 best, then it does mean something. Okay, but that's not usually the case. Even though we get a unified, we have a BC and a BA fight, but the BO and the IBF guy, he's left out, so it can't be unified because it's not the 2 best. And the other thing is, your boy Floyd Mayweather taught the fans that only undefeated matters. And the other fighters see that, and they see how much money he made by keeping that O and protecting it. That's what these other guys try to emulate.
Yeah, in part, I have to agree with you, but keep this in mind. Before Floyd Mayweather, that's Rocky Marciano. And Marciano,
he didn't duck anybody.
No, I agree. I'm not saying he did. Okay, I'm not saying that at all. Rocky was a great fighter, great fighter in his era.
Floyd never cleaned out one division.
Great champion of his era. I give him credit. But Marciano being unbeaten, that was always his calling card, to rate him amongst the greatest fighters. If he had one loss early in his career,
if Lastarza wins the first fight, we look at him differently.
And I got another one, the topic of Marciano. Frank, speaking about fighters avoiding other fighters, I love the way you avoid issues. A case in point, Sonny Liston, Rocky Marciano. What a great job of tap dancing you did. You go from Liston being the greatest, one of the greatest of all time, ranking him far ahead of Marciano. And then you write a post. It's a 50-50 fight between him and Rocky. And you were hinting, Frank Laterza, which is okay, that The Rock would have stopped Sonny Liston. You were here. I think you were hinting.
Again, Jack, you misinterpret the point. I would pick Liston. But as I think about the fight a little bit more, there is a pathway for Marciano. He wouldn't be manhandled like people think. And if he gets to the second half of the fight, it's a fight, and Sonny would have some problems. If he gets there, I don't know if he would, but he might. Now, if you want me to pick and you think you're going to pin me down, I would pick Liston, but I would not bet a lot of money on it. I would pick Liston to beat Frazier too, but it's the same thing. If Joe sees the 7th, 8th, 9th round, Sonny might be in some trouble.
But okay, would you give Marciano was a great fighter, in his era. I got to give him all the credit in the world. Don't get me wrong. I'm not down on Rocky. He didn't duck anyone. He did what he had to do.
And he would beat everybody Liston beat.
And and a knock on him, well, they say he beat old men. Technically, they were up there in age, but Jersey Joe Walcott was in his prime, even though he's 38.
And Ezzard Charles was only 2 or 3 years older than him.
Well, Charles was past his best. Charles really was past.
He had a lot of fights, but on the record, he was only 2 or 3 years older.
Joe Louis wasn't the brown bomber in his prime, but he was still a good fighter. He was still a good, competent fighter. So he was beating good fighters in Joe Louis and Ezra Charles. They weren't what they were, not even close in reality, but they were still good. And listen, he beat what was out there. Marciano wasn't the one that ducked Liston. Had Liston come along a few years earlier, I'm sure Marciano would have taken on the challenge of Sonny Liston. He wouldn't have avoided him because I think Rocky had too much pride, to avoid someone. And I don't think Rocky ever thought about retiring unbeaten. That wasn't his thing the way it was Mayweather's. He fought in his attitude.
Right. It just ended up that he was undefeated. It was like the 72 Dolphins. They didn't go in the season planning to go undefeated. They wanted to win every game, but they didn't say, we're going to go undefeated. No, it just happened.
It became a bigger thing, afterward.
After.
But, yeah. So, on the show Saturday at the Louis Armstrong Stadium, I know we talked about Shakur Stevenson, William Cepeda, Berlanga, Shiraz. But David Morrell is returning to the ring, for his first time since losing to David Benavidez. But Benavidez, because he won that fight, the biggest story. He's fighting Anthony Yarde. Benavidez is looking for that breakthrough where he is one of the biggest names in boxing. And even though Benavidez is the boogeyman, we think of him as such a feared fighter, he still needs his breakthrough victory, stopping Demetrius Andrade and all and following up, with wins is fine. But he needs that one big fight to become a star because fans on the street aren't talking about David Benavidez.
So, Jack, this is the perfect scenario to you become yourself, because if Benavidez fights Yarde and he doesn't beat him convincingly, well, then we're going to hear Benavidez isn't that good because he didn't kill Anthony Yarde. And if he does kill Anthony Yarde, then we're going to say, well, Yarde's lost to all the good guys he fought. So it's just another case that when he stepped up, he got beaten. Once again, here it is. What does a fighter have to do? Jack, you will say that. If he struggles with Yarde, he's not that good. If he beats him easy, Yarde wasn't any good.
No, I'm not saying Yarde isn't that good. He's a decent fighter, no more than decent. This isn't a pick-em fight.
So Benavidez should be in Handley, right?
Anything less than a stoppage victory for Benavidez, okay? Doesn't reflect well on him. Benavidez is considered to be a destroyer. That's his image. You would agree with me, his image. And if Yarde should go the distance, keep in mind Kovalev stopped Yarde. So if Yarde should go the distance with Benavidez, it'll have us questioning, is Benavidez truly a monster the way he's made out to be? And that would be fair to question that, Frank.
Jack, name the fire that stopped everybody. Give me the fire that stopped everybody.
No, but listen,
nobody stops everybody. As Bill Parcells says, the other guys get paid too. Yarde's not coming to be Benavidez's punching bag.
Okay, I agree completely. But you have to, if you want to be considered a destroyer, an awesome fight, you have to do it once in a while. There's a blip. There's a fighter that's hard to stop. We were talking about Sonny Liston before. He had Eddie Machen that went the distance with him, but that's understood. You go the distance, you win every round, but Anthony Yarde's a very stoppable opponent. That's what I'm saying. If you put him in there, Benavidez with Bivol, and he wins a close decision, that's great for his career. Any type of victory over Dimitri Bivol is outstanding, if he did that. But you got to beat an Anthony Yarde with, you got to stop him, I feel. And if Anthony Yarde is fighting just to survive, and Benavidez knocks him down 4 times and wins every round, yeah, maybe you could think, okay, Yarde was very defensive. Benavidez did everything to him but stop him. Yeah, you don't hurt your reputation. But Benavidez has to make a statement. What people want to see him. They say, oh, this guy's a monster. Who's going to go in?
He's already made a statement. Canelo will not go near him. I think that's a pretty big statement.
Forget Canelo, I want to see him in with either Beterbiev or Bivol. You heard what Beterbiev said recently. He's annoyed at Bivol. He said, "What's holding up our rubber match? Are they waiting for me to even get older?" And that's a fair question, Frank. What the heck?
He had 24 rounds with him, Jack. He didn't knock him down one time, and he's the monster.
No, but listen.
You can't say Bibble's ducking him. If I'm Bibble, I think that's finished business.
I don't mean why is it being delayed?
I don't know. Has Bibble signed to fight anyone? I don't think so.
No, he's not. I wouldn't say
he'll fight Jack. He'll be Bibble's next fight. Beterbiev will be Bibble's next fight.
But you get the feeling that there's merit to what Beterbiev is saying.
I don't get that feeling one bit. I don't get that feeling one bit.
Why is the fight being delayed? I mean, he's 40,
because
maybe waiting to get older. I don't know.
Bill, but he fought him twice inside of a year. Okay? He didn't run from him outside the ring. He didn't run from him inside the ring. Okay? He scored this signature win of his career. Maybe he needs to just dial it back and rest a little bit. Maybe the fight took a lot out of him. And of course, Beterbiev's going to yell because he got beat.
Well, look what's on the screen from Don McGuire. You know, Benavidez in his last fight wasn't very impressive. So Don raises a really good point. And the point is this. If Benavidez doesn't look good against Yarde, wins a lackluster decision, what are we saying about him? We're already, you know, he has a
We'll put him down until he fights again, Jack, and then if he looks good, then he'll get his props, okay? Evander Holyfield looked like a dead man against Bobby Chez and beat the heck out of Mike Tyson 5 months later.
Holyfield was already a Hall of Famer, already at that point.
My point is you can't always go by the last fight and how they match up. It's how they match up. You can't go by that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I just kind of want to see just a little more, you know. Oh, there's another fight, IBF welterweight title bout. I mentioned this before, Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker. And what I think is going to happen, Brian, who are you picking? Brian Norman, Devin Haney, by the way, at welterweight.
What is that to me?
Yeah, who are you picking in that
fight? I'm picking Brian Norman.
Yeah, I'm getting I don't know what Haney has left. I just don't know what he has left. Oh, yeah, Don McGuire, by the way, is in the mixed martial arts, you know, Hall of Fame there. Yeah, he was inducted. A real good guy, Don McGuire. You know, congratulations.
Don was a fighter?
Yeah, I mean, you're into mixed martial arts, but, you know, congrats, Don. You were who I thought you were. I should have acknowledged.
Oh, Don, nice to have you aboard.
Yeah. Okay.
I do some jiu-jitsu training and some other martial arts training, and I boxed years ago, but I'm an old man now. But, hey, that's great.
Yeah.
He was inducted with Holyfield, Roy Jones, and Mickey Ward. Maybe we could have you on one time, Don. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Don. Good man, Don. Yeah, good man. Yeah, and those are good names, you know, to be inducted with. You know, speaking of fighting too long, Roy Jones, I mean, you know, Roy's a student of the game, but, you know, but when you think
Don's a photographer, I thought, okay.
When you think of, yeah. But when you think about, you know, how long Roy Jones fought past his peak, and when you think of certain...
I don't know who Randy Kamish is, Don. Tell me about him. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Never heard of him. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, when you think of Roy Jones, I mean, you know, does he get the recognition he deserves? Like, he's a man without a weight division, first of all.
Well, he said he dominated 3 weight classes, according to him.
No, well, Roy Jones is he's always in the pound for pound discussion. Okay?
I'm kidding, Don. I know Randy.
Yeah.
He knows that.
Yeah, okay.
Jack,
So
all I can say is this. Roy Floyd retired after 50 fights. I believe that that Jones beat Ruiz in his 50th fight. If you compare their first 50 fights, there is no comparison under any metric. Mayweather is no Roy Jones other than the fact that he made more money. The sad part is Roy stayed too long, came back, and he lost in a bad fashion, and that's what hurt him. I think his career was over after he beat Ruiz and came back down to 175. He was never the same fighter.
Well, but we gotta point out that Roy Jones picked his spots during his prime. A case will be Darius Mikuszewski. He didn't want to go overseas and fight.
And I don't blame him. Mikuszewski should have came here, Jack. And you're going to blame Roy for picking his spots. Let me ask you this, Jack. He fought undefeated Tony and undefeated Hopkins. Give me one opponent Mayweather fought as good as either one of them when he fought them. Can't do it.
Well,
Who?
But
if
I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm only playing devil's advocate, I could say Tony was weight drained, and Tony also did not look so good in all his performances.
So once again, there we go. Back to what I said. Jones shut Tony out. So instead of talking about how he shut him out, it's going to be Tony was weight drained. So there's a fight that he did. He knocked him down and he won practically every round, but he doesn't get the credit. Do you see what I'm saying?
No.
Exactly. He beats a guy like James Toney who nobody beat, and he was weight drained. That, as you would say, Jack, that's not Roy's fault.
The best of Jones is better than the best of Mayweather. We're not debating that. I agree with that.
He was a superior fighter. Let's just say that.
But you got to look at the amount of Hall of Famers or near Hall of Famers that Mayweather beat. We talked about Ricky Hatton before. Mayweather stopped a good version of Ricky Hatton when Hatton was in his
Does that,
prime.
Jack, is Ricky Hatton really a Hall of Fame fighter? Let's forget who's in. Let's talk about who was really a Hall of Fame fighter, and give me the guys Mayweather beat in his prime.
Wait, he beat Diego Corrales in Corrales' prime, and Corrales is in the Hall of Fame.
Diego Corrales may be his best win, Jack. That's a very good win. It's not equal to beating James Toney or Bernard Hopkins, but it's an outstanding win because Corrales was some fighter back then.
Arturo Gati's a Hall of Fame, and Mayweather dominated him.
Jack, do you know how many Arturo Gatis that Roy Jones beat?
Okay. Gennaro Hernandez isn't in the Hall of Fame, actually, but highly respected.
Good fighter. Yes.
What about Juan Manuel Marquez, who is in the Hall of Fame? Mayweather beat him.
Who came up from what? He started at 126, I believe, or 122, and then Floyd stiffed him on the scales and came in at 146. Yeah, you could say that's a good win, but do I have to go back and repeat the guys who beat Marquez before that? Give me the guy that when Floyd beat him, it was like, oh, I can't believe it. Diego Corrales and Canelo before Canelo peaked, and he fought a weight-drained Canelo. I don't want to hear Pacquiao because Marquez knocked Pacquiao out for 2 minutes 3 years before they fought. The fact that Mayweather could decision him when they fought does not impress me at all.
I was in Vegas, and I saw 2 of the Pacquiao Marquez fights from ringside. Okay,
the second and the third fight you saw.
The third and the fourth. Okay, I saw
the knockout.
Pacquiao got stopped. Right. The third.
I thought Marquez won the third.
I had it scored a draw from ringside. I had it a draw. But I noticed something about the fourth fight. The only reason Pacquiao got stopped, well, there are 2 reasons. One, Marquez had a certain advantage, I thought, but then again, a lot of people feel he didn't have, some insiders feel Marquez didn't have the advantage I'm talking about, but let me leave that alone. But I also noticed in that fight,
he leveled the playing field.
Pacquiao was picking up the pace. He was trying extra hard for stoppage. He did not want to win another tight decision. He was pushing it. He was extra aggressive, and he walked into something. he fought with a desperation like he needed.
They both were down in that fight.
No, I don't think Pacquiao was down earlier in the fight.
Pacquiao, he dropped Pacquiao in the third round.
I don't remember that. Maybe it's
Pacquiao got right up.
I don't remember that. I can't, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't remember that happening.
Let me just see. Keep talking, Jack. I'm going to punch it in real quick.
I don't remember. The first fight they had, I thought Pacquiao clearly won. He dropped Marquez 3 times in the first round.
In the first minute and a half.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Certain fights where one fighter doesn't finish the other, and had he finished the other, you never would have had subsequent events happen. Had Pacquiao gotten Marquez out of it in the first round, they never would have fought after that. You realize that, Frank? It would have been one and done. You're right. First round knockout. I also think to myself, too, Griffith and Benvenuti, their first fight in the 4th round, Benvenuti was badly hurt and reeling around the ring. If Griffith finished them, they never would have had the trilogy. Benvenuti would have went back to Italy as another overhyped European fighter. Bobby Ches knocks down Prince Charles Williams a couple of times, has him in bad trouble, doesn't finish him. Charles goes on to win that fight in a rematch. But
Marquez had Pacquiao down in round 3.
Okay, I just
correct.
Don't remember. I just don't remember that. Okay. But but with Pacquiao. Yeah, Marquez retired after the fight with Pacquiao.
He had 2 fights after that.
Yeah, but
he lost to Bradley, and then he won a nondescript fight.
Right after, After
he stopped Pacquiao.
Right,
Jack.
Right,
I'm going to throw something out at you. We can touch on next week.
Yeah.
Ben Dowdy threw out a post a couple of weeks ago. Who was that one fighter that was Hall of Fame and great and everything, and they checked every box that you never warmed up to? His was Manny Pacquiao. Mine is James Toney. Who do you have? Who would you say is the one guy that was all that, but for some reason, you just didn't? My 2 are Toney and Hagler, but it's Toney more.
He just has to be in the Hall of Fame or what?
He's got to really be special. That you just didn't.
I could name Hall of Famers. Oh boy, I would have to think. There's certain fighters that just never did much for me.
Who's the fighter that everybody raves about that you don't think is all that, or that they not that you don't think they're all that, but they just never really captivated you?
Could I talk boxing history?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll tell you, who's kind of legendary fighter, Georges Compartier, the guy who got stopped by Dempsey, the Frenchman, in 4 rounds. I didn't think he was anything at all from what I saw. First $1 million gate fight.
Right.
I didn't think he was much at all.
All right, Jack, but you didn't live in his time. How about somebody that we've actually seen? Somebody that's, say, post 65 to now. That's 60 years. Nope, really?
Yeah, it's...
were you a big... Did you think Hopkins was all that? Some people don't.
No, but I respect his body of work tremendously, and his ability to fight well into an old age made Hopkins special. To beat Antonio Tarver and Kelly Pavlik at his age, Hopkins was special.
Jack, it's not that you don't think they were good.
I'll name one. Did he have to be a champion?
Go ahead, just name him.
Someone who I like a great deal. It's Jerry Cooney. I just didn't think and no knock on him. You compare him, could Cooney have beaten this guy, that guy? I don't think he had a complete enough career. He's a terrific individual. He's a terrific individual. And I know he had a lot of talent, but he didn't fight long enough. His career basically, in large part, is summed up by his good showing against Larry Holmes.
He does get a lot of mileage out of that.
Exactly. If you eliminate that, how can I say Cooney against this guy or that guy if he didn't have the body of work to compare him to those guys? But let's approach on this again more next week.
All right, Jack, good show. We both like Shakur. We both like Katie Taylor. Until next week, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you.
Amanda Serrano. I don't like Katie Taylor.
I meant Serrano. Okay. Yes, we both like Serrano.
Yeah.
Thanks for correcting that. We will see you next week. Thank you for watching.